Welcome to the Oclef Kinder podcast. I'm Glenda, and my goal is to create a new Oclef Kinder program which prepares students ages 3 through 6 for our traditional piano lessons by the time they reach age 7. I'm interviewing leaders in the early childhood music field, and today I'm thrilled to be interviewing Rebecca Filsinger, aka Mrs. F of Mrs. F's Music Room.
That's me.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being with us today. How are you?
Good, thank you. Man, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Early childhood music is something super near and dear to my heart. So I'm always excited to kind of geek out and talk about it with somebody interested in talking back with me about it.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little? So, from reading about you online, I think you teach a wide range of students, or age-wise. Can you tell me a little bit about your musical
hmm
background and more specifically with early childhood music?
Yeah, so currently I teach elementary general music, but to a very wide range of students. So I start with pre K and then I teach all the way up to fifth grade general music. And then I do, chorus with my fourth and fifth graders and the musical. I also direct that as well. But
Cool.
really, what the foundation of all of their music learning and their success really starts at that early childhood level, that pre K level that I'm super fortunate to have in kindergarten as well. Um, I guess, going back to where my love of early childhood music came from, I did my music education degree at SUNY Buffalo State, and when you're there and you're going through that music education degree, you see a wide variety of methodologies and pedagogies, and you go into a variety of classrooms. And I just happened to observe a teacher in the area who is now one of my colleagues. Actually, we now work together in the same district,
Awesome.
and she was primarily music learning theory based. And I fell in love with all things music learning theory. And when I graduated from Buffalo State, I sought out the Gordon Institute of Music Learning and looked to see how I could further my knowledge in Gordon's music learning theory methodology. So I took a course. I took the early childhood level 1 course at the University at Buffalo, and the rest is kind of history. It was, just a really wonderful foundation for presenting early childhood music in a really musical and mindful way. Um, yeah, so that's where I am now. I've taught plenty of early
Cool.
childhood classes, both at UB and separately, and yeah.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So I'd love to hear more about what drew you to music learning theory. That's how I found you, was through the Gordon MLT website. And I think you had done some sort of like Zoom lecture. And then I started watching your
Yeah.
videos on Instagram. And I was like, these are so cute, with your
Ah,
classroom videos. So
thank
what
you.
ways does MLT inspire your classroom, and how does that differ from maybe a regular classroom or a not MLT classroom?
Sure. So I guess what really drew me to music learning theory is just the way that it engages the younger musicians. It's really, I guess, built to engage the students, and it exposes them to this variety of tonalities and meters, and modes and things that we might like. It goes beyond your traditional major minor duple triple Western music,
Yeah.
and it really challenges their audiation. But I also loved early on, and I still do to this day. But what I really loved was how it also challenged me as a musician.
Yeah.
I went in with these personal hangups and um, discomforts about chanting in 5/8 and singing in 7/8 and singing in Dorian and Phrygian, and
Yeah.
so it challenges you as the teacher and the musician to kind of shed um, any sort of you just have to have confidence in your own ability and really push your own musicianship. And it's so funny because when I was an early teacher, um, I I found myself like being a little nervous to include these into the classroom. And I thought, there's no way that they're going to be able to sing and move in 7/8. and
Mhm.
they really like go above and beyond what your expectations of them are. So it's just really nice. I love music learning theory in that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that it's such a wide variety of music.
Mhm.
There's a study that came out. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up and include it in the notes, but it was saying that the best thing you can do in early childhood is expose your students to music, but not only just music, not like the Mozart effect where you're just playing Mozart albums. The
Mhm.
what the key is exposing them to all different types of music so that they're uh, I don't I guess that it develops their musical vocabulary. If you grow up
Mhm.
only hearing major and minor, then yeah,
Mhm.
Locrian and Phrygian are going to feel very weird. But if you've been singing in Locrian since you were 3, then it's just another mode, right?
Exactly. And like a main tenet of music learning theory is that children are learning music in the same way that they're learning language.
Hmm.
So they have that like language babble, they have the musical babble as well. So if you're just bathing them in this variety of tonalities and meters, that as they become a little bit older and they're like breaking the code of the language of music,
Hmm.
um, their musical phrases become a little bit more meaningful for all of them. And yeah, so just finding that and connecting that to their own audiation and developing their audiation as they get older. So
That's great.
yeah.
Um, so I think one of the special things about your job, it sounds like, is that you get to see students like advance through their ages
Mhm.
or stages of development. So what do you think are the most essential things musically that students ages 3 through 6, so this like pre-K kindergarten age, what are the most essential things that they're learning or experiencing in music class that would be like essential to them maybe taking piano lessons by the time they're in
Mhm.
second grade or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, so, when the kids come to me and they're in pre-K at that point, they're all kind of in their different stages of their own preparatory audiation.
Mhm,
So it's like their own musical thinking and the way they organize their musical thinking. And not to get too involved into preparatory audiation, but there's three
yeah,
types of audiation.
okay,
There's the acculturation is type one, and that's like your earliest type, like birth to ages 2 through 4. And then there's imitation, which can be from like 2 to 5 ish. And then
mhm,
we get to assimilation, which is like the highest part of preparatory audiation, and that's like 3 to 6. So when they come to you in an early childhood setting, these children could be anywhere within their preparatory audiation. It all kind of depends on what their experiences at home are. And so, it's just kind of working within their preparatory audiation as well as their musical aptitude and just giving them these different experiences of listening and singing and chanting, um, and moving and flowing as often as they can to kind of get them to that next stage within their audiation and out of their into discrimination learning and their inference learning.
mhm,
um, yeah, so just building that vocabulary for them as often as you can with the different tonal patterns and rhythm patterns within different tonalities and meters, giving them the space to audiate, the space to echo or give their own musical responses.
mhm.
Lots of space, lots of time, lots of
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
So I'm curious. I used to teach. I used to be that traveling preschool music teacher that would arrive with a bag full of tambourines and
Uh-huh.
shakers, and we'd do like 30 minutes, and then I'd go to the next school. And I
Yeah.
also taught some like toddler baby, like baby and me type classes.
That's
And
awesome.
Uh, it's a lot of like percussion and singing, and I'm wondering if that's
Mhm.
what you're doing in your school classrooms as well, or what kind of instruments you're using.
Yeah, so for them, I always like to give like some more formal guidance and instruction with them. We use a lot of rhythm sticks, and
Mhm,
so lots of like keeping that like steady macro beat as much as often as we can
mhm,
within those early childhood settings. But always being okay with the random responses and moving towards more purposeful responses as we can, depending on like in pre-K, sometimes they might be more random than they are purposeful, but
mhm,
it's okay to like listen to what their responses are and maybe echo them. and then demonstrate what it is that you would like for them to do. So lots of rhythm sticks. We love egg shakers. We love an egg
Yes.
shaker. We love an egg shaker. And then I also personally, in my own music teaching, I love scarves. I love the use of scarves.
Yeah.
It's a great way to show like a very purposeful breath for them, to demonstrate
Mm.
resting tone within their audiation. So, what was I just doing the other day? Let me see if I can think of a song that we were just, oh, okay. So we were doing, I think it's Stephanie Lavelle's blowing in the wind. So blowing in the wind, blowing in the wind, my ghost is blowing in the wind, falling down with a whoosh. And then we take a breath, plop, and we find that like resting tone, and they watch it. It's this magical moment where you have, like 20 children throwing their scarves in the air, and they're all taking that beautiful breath, and they're watching it, and they will wait for that scarf to hit the ground, and then and hopefully their responses are generally within where that, that resting tone is supposed to be. So we definitely use a lot of scarves, just a lot of small manipulatives, depending on, what the song and the activity is. And sometimes even the props that we're using, we don't necessarily use for their intended purpose. We
Yes.
use like a lot of creative play, like a lot of play-based learning and play-based song making. So like the other day we took oops, sorry, my light just went off. The other day we took like hand drums, and we did like that traditional stirring and stirring and stirring our brew, and we put
Yeah.
it inside the hand drums with our rhythm sticks, and we're chopping up ingredients first. So I guess the props that you're using are the purposes for them, and the different things that you can do with them are endless. It's as endless as your own imagination can be, and their imagination. You take their recommendations and their suggestions all the time, and see what they come up with too, because they're better playmakers than we are for
They're
sure. So
so
we follow
creative.
their lead.
Yes. I remember even just like, how many ways can we play the sticks? And like, I thought I had exhausted all options. And then another student was
Mhm.
like, what about this? And he started like nailing it, like pretending it was like a hammer and nail. I was like, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Let's all do that.
Right. Yeah, totally. I know. The cool thing, the kind of, it can be daunting, I guess, but one of the coolest things about early childhood music is that you always kind of have to stay flexible with it,
Yeah.
because you just never know where their creativity is going to lead you, and it could lead you to this really wonderful place in your lesson that you weren't initially intending.
Hmm.
And that also kind of plays into the why music learning theory is so great, because you really have to develop your musicianship as a teacher, to be ready to respond to their responses and make them
Yeah.
meaningful, within the context and the parameters of what you might be doing, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we as teachers in learning to teach this way have to be better at audiation ourselves, it kind of just like points to that like glaring missing piece in our music ed, because we are both very musically
Mhm.
educated people, I
Mhm.
presume. And I don't think I really had a grasp on ear training and sight singing and felt confident about it until
Mhm.
like my DMA degree, when they were like, you've all done this before, but we know you're bad at it, so you're all doing it again. Like
Isn't that funny how that happens? I know, even still, as like a 31-year-old, I see, I hear sight reading, and you have that moment of,
oh god.
but right, exactly. But having that, that like internal audiation and really working on it. And the thing of it too, in your classroom, is we ask our students to do these things once they have gone through that early childhood music experience. We start asking them to be more creative and do things like improvise and do things like
Yes.
compose. And so we as the teachers have to be confident and comfortable in our own abilities and skills. I always tell my students, I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself, or
Mhm,
like be able to do with you. And so, in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I guess I have to practice my musicianship, and
mhm.
and be better at improvisation, and be able to compose something and be able to notate it on the board and know what that says.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I started composing kind of later. I used to write songs and poetry when I was like a teenager, and then
Hmm.
that went away as I studied classical music, and then I started teaching with a company called Performing Arts Workshop in San Francisco, and they're very
Hmm.
process based. And I was like, how do I fit that into classical music? Basically, we want the kids to create their own original something,
Hmm.
not just learn a thing and repeat it, right? And
Right.
so I had to start composing so that I could teach kids how to compose, right? Which, and now I love
Hmm.
composing. I mean, it starts very simple with like, are you going to make a soft sound or a loud sound? Who knows, you know? But
Hmm.
it inspired me to be creative myself and start composing, which was really great. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, same. So for me, I mean, as you know, this within the context of early childhood, actually, why I started composing my own classroom songs. I love composing, early childhood songs and chants, and it was something that like I would do on my own, but
yeah.
I don't know. Again, like that confidence piece, I was like, oh, these. I'm keeping these for myself. There's no place for these in the classroom. And then one day, I'll never forget, it was a little second grader, and they were like, I think that we should be giants. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, well, kid, I can't think of a song for
Yeah.
that. She was like, it's okay, I have a song. And she started singing this song to me that wasn't, she was, and it was generally there, but I could hear her audiation. I could hear how she was generally audiating in major tonality, and I could hear that tonic chord. I could hear that dominant chord. So I kind of then went up and I said, okay, I think is it sounding like this? And we kind of like got her generally where it was supposed to be. And so we sing this song, we come up with this song, and it was so wonderful because it had all those like Laban efforts that she was like having weights, and she had time where things were stretched slow, and then we sped up, and it was really wonderful. Like, look at you can teach
Oh,
my class for me, honey. But then it was the end of the class, and she comes up to me and she's like, so are you going to write my song down?
oh my gosh,
I'm like,
so
oh my,
cute.
children are so wonderful in the sense that they will always call you out on things. They'll
Yes.
call you out and make you your best self. So I had to sit down and, notate, transcribe what she had been singing for me. And so I said to myself, you know what? Why not? Why if not now, when? When can I
Yeah.
start, writing my own songs? They have to show them they are composers, and
Yeah.
um, they have the ability to do this thing, and I can too. And so, yeah, it was
That's
great.
amazing. What is that? That was one of the questions I was going to ask, but I know it's like there probably isn't a clear answer, but what is that stage or what is that? You kind of described what it looks like, but that audiation stage when they start kind of speaking their own musical sentences instead or creating their own things instead of like repeating mimicked sounds.
Sure.
How
So that
how
would probably, yeah, that would be like out of that. You're definitely out of the preparatory audiation stage by them.
Mhm.
Although, um, well, maybe not necessarily, I guess. I mean, it could be as simple, something as simple as, with the smaller children, like we do a chant everything is very fall based in my brain right now because
Yes.
that's what we're doing in class. But we do a chant, the pumpkin patch chant, pumpkin patch, pumpkin patch. I'm looking for a pumpkin in a pumpkin patch. Here is one, nice and fat, turned into a jack-o'-lantern just like that. And I like to show them, like same and different hands. And we have that conversation about
Mm.
what chanting same looks like, and it has the two hands open, and that's an echo, and you do what I do, so ba 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 ba, and you echo that for me. But
Mhm.
then I'll show them, that those different hands, and
Mm.
yeah, right. So then I might chant something to them, and at this point, if I'm doing this in early childhood music, I'm not putting rhythm syllables to what we're doing yet. It's kind of
Yeah.
on that neutral syllable. It could be ba. I like ba,
Mhm.
das,
Yeah.
whatever we might be doing,
Yeah.
but so different. They see different, and they know that what they have to give me has to be slightly different somehow. So ba ba
Mm.
ba 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 ba, and they'll give me something different. I
Yeah.
usually like to make that, a little bit um, more more challenging if I ask them to do different, because I find that if I do very simple macro micro, they might just echo the same thing back to me. But if it's a little bit more complicated, sometimes within their audiation, that becomes they're challenged then to give me something a little bit different. And
Cool.
I believe, and again, I'm not an expert in music learning
Yeah.
by any means, but it's just something that I really enjoy. And so
Yeah.
I'm almost positive that is at that like that oral stage where
Hmm.
they have those rhythm skills where you can have them move to the macro beat and the micro beat, and they are able to, chant and on those neutral syllables and echo on the neutral syllables, and deciding, if something is the same or different, and hearing something what it is by what it isn't. And then that kind of goes into the generalization. It's kind of like bridging between your oral and your generalization
Hmm.
oral, um, to be able to recognize and give something different, and identify the same and the different. So yeah.
Cool. Cool. I know. Okay, so I know we're running low on time. I could ask you like 1,000 more questions, but I'll ask one more question, which is, what has been the most rewarding aspect of teaching early childhood music for you?
Oh man, you know, music is something that's so innate in everybody, I think. And so, all of these children are all born with the ability to be musicians, and so they have the potential to achieve in music. And so in early childhood music, you're giving them kind of the skills that they need to be their best musical selves as they grow and they continue to learn. And there's just a lot of joy in that, because it is, again, there's music in all of us. We
Hmm.
all have this potential to be audiating and find like a joyful music making experience. And early childhood, it is all joy. Like the fun and the creativity, they're playing and they're learning, and without even realizing that they're learning it, they're just happy to be making music with you and
Yeah.
experiencing that. And then as you grow with them through that early childhood stage, it is wonderful to see that foundation and how it's helped them to grow and succeed, and not necessarily become like these world class musicians, but always be able to find a sense of confidence and capability within music and making music. So that's it for
Yeah,
me.
that's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Hmm.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, or Mrs. F. Thank you so much for
Thank
chatting with
you.
us today.
Yeah, this was my pleasure. This was really fun. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.